Hello, everyone. This is Leslie Hassler here from Your Biz Rules. Thank you for joining us today on the Growing Your Business webinar. We will get started here right away. I'm a stickler for time, but I understand that some days it takes a few minutes to get all the computers going in the direction that they want to go into. I will start off by saying I'm coming off a cold, so if I cough or sneeze, or if you hear just a brief pause because I've muted myself, then you'll know why that is. But I have my cough drop, I have my Kleenex, I have my water, I have my throat coat tea, all here so that we can be able to share with you today. As people come on and as you come on, go ahead and say hello to us. Tell us who you are, where you're joining us from. If there's something you're hoping to get from today, we'd love to see what that is. And then we'll just kind of start to get going here in just a second. I know there's some people out there that aren't saying hello, so make sure you say hello. I'm going to make sure I have the right screen up to be able to see you. I believe I do, so I'm going to say hi to you first. Howdy. This is my Texas hi. Howdy. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is really the theme about growing your business, and I wanted to share with you some of the rules and to really being able to do that successfully, sustainably, and profitably. You know, we all have moments of growth in our business, and we'll kind of talk about those a couple of times, but really you've got that initial growth of a startup, and then you probably will have another second or third burst of growth when you are trying to hit certain revenue numbers. So if you're under, under six figures, that 100,000 is that goal. If you're over 100,000, generally 250 is the goal, from 255, 5, 7, and then a million. Now, what I will share with you and what I love about these rules is that these rules work no matter what stage you're at in your business, and it's just about the strategies that you use for your appropriate business state. I hope that makes some sense. So with that, let's go ahead and get down and started. I know a couple more people are coming on, but I just kind of want to review with you guys. Many of you know why I do what I do. I come from an entrepreneurial family, and this was me. I actually have the words over my eyes, but this was my family when I was younger, before my second sister was born. And my parents had businesses. I just didn't really equate to being an entrepreneur as a child because it was always a business, a job, a business, a job. And so they were never very successful in their businesses until one. And it really started to change our lives for the better until through some mismanagement of funds, the accountant walked off with about $20,000 in sales tax money. My family was poor. Is what's the blessing of being a child is that you don't always understand how poor you are until you get much older and until you can see comparisons. So I didn't really understand how bad off we were, but having that accountant take off with $20,000 really financially ruined our family and set kind of the family down a course that over the next 7-8 years was very dark. Would end in divorce, would end in the family really being split across the country. And so as a child, I kind of told myself that I didn't want to be an entrepreneur because being in business was bad to families. I mean, business ruined my family, and I didn't want that to happen as an adult. But what I love is God has other plans for us, no matter what stories we tell ourselves. And so part of the entrepreneurial journey for me is that I started off being the accidental entrepreneur, meaning I didn't have a plan in 2007 when I opened up my first business. It was a course of I was working contract. I was tired of being let go of positions because other people couldn't manage their business, and so I wanted some security. So I was going to open up my own business. And, in all honesty, we started off really well, and many of you have heard me say that I just thought I was a shizzle and didn't understand what everybody was really having such a hard time with business I mean, I just didn't get it because we were doing good. what I learned there in this kind of accidental entrepreneur phase is even a bad business can do well in good times. It's how that same business fares in the bad times that really shows the strength of what the business is about, the pricing, all the mechanics of a business. So I had to be that accidental entrepreneur that created a job for herself in order to be able to share with you today. I went from that accidental entrepreneur to the failing entrepreneur. And I can laugh at it now, but it really wasn't funny. It really wasn't funny to end the year and see that we had a $16,000 loss, to end the year and see that our business shrunk by 50%. I mean, we lost half of $100,000 worth of business in a year, and that's pretty significant. And so I spent 2 years as this kind of failing, struggling, floundering entrepreneur, really looking for what I say the wrong the wrong answers to the wrong questions. You know, I thought by looking and seeing what everybody else was doing that would help me in my business, and what I really just didn't understand is what was not working in my business well enough to be able to find the right answers. So, like I said, lost of 50% income. I was working 80-hour weeks. I was well into that. I just have to work harder. It was a depression time for myself. Like I said, I tried everything everybody else was doing. It didn't work. And I didn't know what else to do. I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I think that's so true for all of us as we're on our entrepreneurial path, that we don't always know what we don't know. So my next kind of path in entrepreneurship was this, I'll call the successful entrepreneur, because on paper I was successful. And this is me here with my coach Doug Winnie, who's on, I guess, the left side of me, and Brad Sugars, who's a multi-billionaire, on the right side of me, accepting an award for the fastest growing company, the best turnaround company in 2011. And that was wonderful because I wasn't struggling anymore. You know, we grew the business 150% in 6 months, grew back the loss plus some, won the award. I think the total finish out for that year was growing it, doubling it, growing by 200%. I had staff. I was doing all the things, again, that were the right things to do to grow the business. But when I say successful on paper, I was still working those 80-hour weeks. I was still drowning in my business. And while I was much more successful, I still wasn't making the kind of financial income that I really wanted to be making for the time that I was putting into my company. So then I became the reinvention entrepreneur. And I was sitting here thinking about this, and I've been blessed with the opportunity to reinvent and to grow my business significantly, or businesses significantly, at least 4 times in my entrepreneurial career. Going on 8 years as being an entrepreneur, that kind of averages once every 2 years. And so I've gotten to be quite skilled at the reinvention process and the changing that you can bring. So this reinvention moment was really about moving our business, my business, from Houston to Dallas. And the reason that we chose to do that is that we have my mother-in-law has a very rapidly progressing form of dementia. We wanted to be back up in Dallas to be near them. Houston's pollution level is astronomical. I have asthma and all these other fun elements, which is part of the reason I sound so lovely today, and needed to be in a much better environment. So in doing so, I essentially, by moving cities, was willing to walk away from that successful business, because that first business, being interior design, was a complete word of mouth business. It was a referral-based business. I fully believe for a lot of small businesses that the guerrilla type or the duct tape forms of marketing are some of the most effective investments that you can make in your time and your money. And I networked, and I, delivered outstanding customer service, and I was willing to walk away from all of that. And literally, in the 6 months that it took us to kind of complete the process of moving from Houston to Dallas, I actually worked a lot less in my business. I still had staff, although for one reason or the other, they were starting to leave the company, and noticed how much of my business was working without me. Really, how much of my business didn't need me, and what was really fueling the growth. Because for 6 months, literally, guys, I did not put more than 20 hours of work into my business because I was either commuting from Houston to Dallas, trying to find a house, trying to pack a house, trying to get schools, all those nice, fun things that happen when you are moving businesses and moving cities. But what really kind of woke me up is I had this moment to kind of rewrite all the rules. When I first started in business, and what we all like to do is we like to give ourselves rules of the game, right? And we tend to base that on what we see out in the world and what we see works for people, what the expectations are, what we had in corporate, and we define this realm based upon those ideals. What I realized is that I didn't need a business that operated by those ideals anymore. I needed a business that fully supported me and the life that I wanted to live, not a business that controlled every moment of it. And so in this reinvention, because I was getting brand new clients, because my staff was turning over and all the stress that was associated with that, I just started rewriting the rules. And it was awesome. I loved it. And what happened, granted, 2012 is when we moved, 2013 being our first full year here in Dallas, just had started networking and marketing the business, I think in November of 2012 here in Dallas, is we grew the business. I grew the business again by over 20% with no staff and working part-time. The reason why is because of all these things that I did here. I released what didn't work. I released what didn't serve. I rewrote the rules about how the work was going to get done, and I refocused the priorities. I let go of so much busy work. It is amazing to me that I could run a multi-six-figure business on 20 hours a week. So that reinvention is really kind of key as I talk about this next phase of really being the intentional entrepreneur. And that's really where I'm at with Your Biz Rules. It's about a 2-year-old business in formation from the time that I started it, but we're very intentional. I wanted to take all those learnings from the first 6 years of having my business and fast track the success, fast track the ramp up, fast track being able to get a new business to replace it. And so even in 2013, I worked 20 hours a week on Luxury for the Home. I worked 20 hours a week on Your Biz Rules, and really made that full conversion over to this company last year. So it's an amazing place to be. I put it as kind of a moment of peace because the entrepreneurial path is kind of full of those ups and downs, full of the learnings and the sometimes struggles and sometimes victories. So I lay all that out for you because I want you to understand that I have been in almost any position that you are currently in. And with that, what I challenge you today is to really kind of have this, philosophy, if you will, that you can have results and you can have excuses, but you can't have both. Because a lot of what I hear from people that are interested in growing their business is, I can't because, and that's an excuse, a blame, a denial, whatever it is. And I'm here as living proof saying, yes, you can, because I have. And if I can do it, because I'm no one special. Really and truly, ladies and gentlemen, I'm no one special. I put my pants on one leg at a time. I trip, I fall, I get sick. Same things that everybody happens. But I just know that you can have the business that you want if you choose to have results and let go of the excuses. So that's the purpose of me sharing with you my story, because really and truly I have been there. I've done that in so many ways, and I'm sure I'll be destined to repeat some lessons again. But I know that if you focus on the results and leave the excuses behind, you can have the business that you want to have. So I want you to choose for yourself, what's it going to be, results or excuses? Some rules of the house. What I ask, because I am going to share a lot of information here, is that you're just present with us. As much as you can, try not to multitask. I do talk about multitasking as a myth. It actually hurts us far much more than it helps us, but you just may miss that one key concept that you really need in order to change your business if you're not present with me today. So I promise you I'll keep it fast-paced and moving right along. What I would love for you to do is go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat box, say hello. If you have those aha moments, put them up there. That is much for you as it is for me to see what's coming and hitting home, but when you actually claim those moments, they tend to stick up more in your subconscious and actually have a better likelihood to improve a situation that you may be experiencing. Feel free to give us questions and comments. We do have Amy, my VA, on here helping us out today. So if I'm not seeing some of those, I'm sure she'll kind of pop them into the chat box and help us out there. Our time together is pretty limited. I talk fast. I think fast. I talk fast. I will try to keep that pretty measured. But when I talk fast, it's just because I want you to get as much as you can. But know that there's more. I can only go so far, so deep. And this webinar is really a pay it forward time for my community and for people that are interested in growing your business. So I love to pay it forward. If something hits home for you today, pay it forward to somebody else that might be able to change their business as well. And, you know, together we'll really improve the nature of business. And I fully believe that the future of the world is riding on the women entrepreneurs out there, that we can have a force. So let's go and do that together. So this is for you. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I'm going to take a sip of my tea. If you're in a startup mode, this is perfect for you. If you have plateaued and need to take it to the next level, you're going to be able to get some things here. And if you've stalled out in that kind of death valley of no time and no money, you're going to be able to get something here. So I really won't hear the excuse that you don't have time or you don't have money, because I'm going to show you ways that you're going to be able to make both of those in your life and be able to put your business into a growth mode. But honestly, you need to be ready to grow your business. This really needs to be a burning desire for you. If you want to grow your business, I say 10% is super easy. 200, I put it out there because you'll believe that. But honest to gosh, I've got clients that are looking to grow their business 1,000%. So I just know how easy this is, even if the numbers are large. It's just a matter of how bad do you want it and how much are you willing to commit yourself to making it happen. If that's you, if you're on board, then we're great. We're going to have a great time. So today, just so we can review the things that we'll talk about, is I'm going to talk about some of the mistakes that you make that actually prohibit growth in your business. Some of them might be surprising to you. They're a little counterproductive or counterintuitive. I'm going to talk about what's that next step that you have to take in order to be able to grow. You're going to understand at least what the 5 rules of growth are. I'm going to go deep into 2 of them. And then I'm going to share some real life case studies. So these are clients or past potential clients, you know, things of that I just have to show you behind the curtain for you to believe that this is possible for yourself. So let's dive into those costly mistakes like throwing money into the trash can. This is really what this is. The first one is kind of, I think when we think about growing our business, we always think it's about more. I need more clients. I need more work. I need more employees in order to have more clients. That is actually not always true. If you're in a startup position, I'm going to say you probably need more clients, okay? But you can still take on more clients in a way that's smart and not about more work, not about hard work. This woman, you can kind of see her, she's like trying to climb up the rope and everybody's grasping at her. I mean, they've got happy faces. They just want a piece of her. More puts you into that position in the center where you're going to be struggling to keep your head above water. And so when you think it's about more, it's not really a sustainable way to grow your business. Okay, sometimes it does mean you get another employee, but it doesn't mean necessarily about doubling your staff. It's, you know, kind of making a blanket statement, but I think what really people focus on is the more clients mode, and that's not always the truth. And I actually have an example here in a little bit that we'll talk about that just a bit more. The number 2 mistake is hurry up and stop. And I have the tortoise and the hare here, where the hare is taking a break. And this is the number one reason that I changed how my one-to-one coaching is run. I used to do 3-month packages. Now I talk about 6 months, because at 3 months, you've worked really hard and you want to stop. You want to take a break. I'm just so tired. Can't I just take a break? And in doing so, you lose all the momentum. You lose the race. To somebody that just took it even at a slower pace, but slow and steady, you can really just stall out your growth by sometimes taking the break, like Mr. Bugs here. The other ways that you can really stall your growth is that you didn't plan properly for the increase in business. You just went for, I need more clients, and that was the plan, and you didn't really plan for how are you going to handle those and maintain service and maintain sanity. How are you going to do it in a 24-hour day period? You may not have chosen to grow in a way that's sustainable. Maybe you're doing discounting or promotion as a way to grow your business. It's not really a sustainable way. So as soon as that promotion goes away, so does the growth. And I love this last one, because even I have done this, is you bend the rules for the dollar. Especially when we take on clients that are poor fits because of the income that it might bring into, that tends to get us into a really bad place that will actually stall all the growth that you're working so hard to build in your business. So there's a point in here about being, not maintaining the race, not being slow and steady, and then there's a point in here about compromising. And so I'm really adamant about, when you're growing your business, that you do it in an uncompromising way. Mistake number 2, sorry, I have it as, or mistake number 3, I have it as number 2. It takes hard work. We're from, America's all about the hard work aspect. What I have found is that that's a bit of a myth when it comes to small business, when it comes to being an entrepreneur. It's not about the working harder, it's really about working smarter. It's really about finding that low-hanging fruit, those guerrilla tactics, those simple, sustainable ways to grow your business. It might take commitment, it might take discipline, but it doesn't have to be hard. And so when we're looking at hard work, if you think of yourself carrying a basket full of rocks and up a mountain, that hard work, you're eventually going to exhaust yourself. And so there needs to be this component of really about how do we do it in a smarter way that's efficient, that's effective, and that actually delivers on what we want, gives us a return on our investment. So let's talk about the step that it takes to make it possible. And it's a 4-letter word. I'm going to let you know that. I'm going to let you know that it's a 4-letter word for a lot of people, because you haven't gone through a process that makes it simple. And the 4-letter word is really about making a plan. You must make a plan. And I love this quote, and you probably heard it before, but failing to plan is planning to fail. The real truth of it is when you just a plan doesn't have to be complicated. I'll actually show you one that I hesitated in showing you because it's an extensive one for a client that's looking to grow, but it's not difficult when you're looking at the weekly and daily activities that need to come to make it happen. We get into this fear of plan because we might not know what to do. It seems too hard. The end goal is too big. It's just overwhelming. So when I talk about you must plan for your growth, there's a couple of things, and we'll actually dig a little bit deeper into it with our 5 rules, but you have to know where you've been. You have to know where you're coming from in order to know where you're going. It's a bit like trying to read a map and not being able to see where you are on it, and then trying to figure out directions to where you're going. You have to be able to position yourself and where you are in your business. You need to be strategic and smart. There are some things that will generate business at, let's say 2%, and there's some things that will generate business at 10%. Which one are you really going to put your effort into? I'm in the boat with the 10%. If I'm going to put in an hour's worth of work, I want to maximize my results. And that's one of those kind of cutting through the clutter and really being uncompromising in your focus and your prioritization to be strategic and be smart. And then this last one is really about making the payoff big. When I have clients that can't seem to get the growth in their business, almost universally, I can go back to there's no big payoff for them. There's no big why for them, or there's no big goal. You know, paying off your bills or being able to make your bills is a great goal, but it is not big. You know, to me, that's the next step in the staircase. But at the top of the staircase, if you could have the pie in the sky, what would it be? And having it be something so personal and so authentic to you and, you know, what it is. I'll let you know one of my big payoffs is I want to retire my husband. He works in the medical field. It's challenging. It's stressful. I would love to retire him. And I have a figure that's associated with what that would take to not just retire him, but also make him feel safe. Because he and I have different risk thresholds, and I know what it would take to make him feel financially safe. And so that's one of my big payoffs. And so when I'm looking at this plan and I start to hesitate or I start to want to back off, I remember what I'm working for. I'm working to be able to retire my husband in 3 years. That's my goal. And so I can really take a look at everything I'm doing with the filter is it going to get me there? So I want the payoff to be personal, more than how you're going to serve, but something that, you know, almost tugs at your heart, tugs at your heartstring, so that it is as big of a pull as a fear might be later, okay? So you must plan, and you must be smart about it. So the 5 rules of growth, and we'll get right into them, is the number 1 rule is release. You have to make room for growth. You can't do what you're doing right now 9 times out of 10, 7 out of 10, and not make room for the growth. Okay, so if you've got a full plate and you can't imagine putting one more thing on it, you have to take something off in order to make room for the growth. Because it's kind of like living in a house. Anybody knows, if you've moved recently, that you fill the space, right? You have a closet, that closet gets filled. I don't know a single person that has an empty closet. You know, you fill the space. You see that when you either move up or move down. Suddenly you have too much space or you don't have enough and you have to get rid of stuff. It's the same way in your business. If there's no room for growth, you're dead in the water. If you're not willing to make room for growth, if you're making excuses or denying that you can make room for growth, it's not going to work. So that's rule number 1, is you just have to make room for the growth. You've got to let go of some things. 2 is understanding really where the opportunity lies. And we're going to get into this one here in a second, and I'll start to show some specific examples of how you can do that and really get a good sense of where you're going. And I'm going to show you for a business that is about a year old, low 5 figures, you know, and they want to get into the 6-figure range. So I'm going to show you that as an example because I know that's a big component of people that are out there. The 3rd rule is really about leverage your resources, and we're actually going to go into this as well. So remember before, if I said I'm not going to take the excuse of no time or no money, I'm going to show you how to be able to do this. This is where we're going to talk about that. The E part of the rules is really about experimenting, evaluating, and execution. Right, is that we're afraid to try some days because we have that fear of failure. But really, it's a part of the process to growth. It's how you make the strategy work for you in your business and for your clients. There's no such thing as a bad strategy. It's only bad when you don't do that experimentation to customize it to you. And so that's kind of that E part. And then S being really savor the success. It's being aware of the success. I will tell you that I am a very future-minded person, and sometimes I have a hard time remembering what I've accomplished because truly I don't live in the past. and I focus on the future. So I have to remind myself what I accomplished. What did we do last year? Wow, that was actually pretty good. It didn't feel so good, going through it, but now that I look at it, it's wonderful. So there's a part of going back and looking at the results into savoring the success. The other part is that there needs to be a reward for achieving this, even if it is, and I've done this for myself, is awarding yourself Salesperson of the Month because you just had a kick butt month and you met your goal. Savoring that success is really kind of an important way to keep yourself motivated to continue to grow your business, to not get placated and not get stagnant. So it's a really important step there. But let's dive deep. Let's get into the understanding where the opportunity lies. And there's really 3 steps in here in this rule. And it's first, you need to know your numbers. Okay? You need to find the ways that your clients can say yes to you. And then you need to be able to choose the right strategy for yourself and the situation and the goal that you're working towards. So you may have heard me talk about the 7 figures to get to 7 figures in your business. And it's basically there are 7 numbers that you really should know in your business that you can use to grow yourself from 5 figures to 6 figures, from 6 figures all the way up to 7 figures. It's all in this. This is what's fun to me, is it's not complicated. I had a point in time to where I thought it was hard, I thought it was complicated, and especially when I turned around the company financially, and every time that I've reinvented this business time and time again, it's about these numbers. This is really what I pay attention to when I see performance. And so just to highlight those, we're talking about leads, the number of people that come saying, hey, I'm interested. Conversion is the percentage of people that you take from a lead to a client, the average sale per client, the number of times that clients on average purchase from you, what your net profit is, what the lifetime value of a client is, and a cost of client acquisition. I actually have another talk that's just on these 7 numbers, so I'm not really going to go too deep into these, but I want you to be aware of what they are. If you need more information on those, please let me know. I'll be happy to share them. There's actually great resources on the website and some audios as well that you can kind of get to looking. But we will talk about these 7 figures probably in 2 months as part of the webinar series. So it's really that whole know where you've been part is knowing what your numbers are. And as soon as you have numbers, you can start tracking these numbers. So if you've only been in business for 3 months, start tracking these numbers. You will be, if you did that at 3 months, you would be light years ahead of somebody that hasn't done it for 5 years. It really is an amazing tool that I cannot emphasize enough for you to have in your business. And I'll show you, the example I have will actually show you why in a minute. So the other way is to really find the opportunities for your clients to say yes. December we did a webinar on finding your right client, and I talked about how difficult we can at times make it for a client to say yes to us. And we're doing it out of fear, out of the feeling the need to protect ourselves. There's a myriad of reasons. But it really is looking at your business and seeing how simply can you make it to say yes. Okay, and you can do that through a whole bunch of ways. I just said 6 here to keep it brief, but from everywhere for how you enroll them, how you upsell them, service levels in your business, how you solve the next problem. When I talked about that number of purchases, that's all about what's their next problem. You've solved this problem, now they have a problem, solving that next problem and really keeping them as a client for a longer period of time. How do you get them to purchase again? If you are a product-based or if you are a repeat service-based kind of business, how do you get them to purchase again? And then referrals. Not only are they saying, yes, they're saying yes, I'll share with you and I'll open my network up to you. All of these ways need to be how we look at our business and seeing where the opportunity lies. Is there a place that we can add service levels into being able to serve clients at different kinds of budgets so that clients are able to say yes even if they can't afford our highest level of service. Okay, it's ways to capture the cash, it's ways to really serve our clients, and it's ways that, we're doing what we're called to do in our mission and purpose, and we're making it easy. And that's really business is all about. How easy can you make it? The easier, the better. So the growth strategies, I'm going to share a few of these with you throughout the course, but no, there are over 300 growth strategies that you could choose from. And here's where I see people get overwhelmed is, first of all, how many do you really need to be able to succeed? Let me just tell you, 3 to 5 on maximum. If you have a highly aggressive growth strategy, maybe you need as many as 8. It just depends on your timing and when you want to make it happen. But then it's how do you choose the right ones? You know, they all can be diamonds, but like I said, you can see this little small diamond, you know, beautiful little diamond here that you might be able to get for the same kind of investment as that big diamond. So it's really a prioritization of what you need in order to reach your big payoff or your big goal, and then choosing a select few. I chose the sparkly because it starts to talk about that shiny object syndrome, right? And we get so distracted by the next great idea. Well, of course we get distracted by the next great idea. There are over 300 ideas out there, and I know I'm low on that number. So it's really about choosing the very, very select few that you're going to work on, okay? I want to give you this case study. So this is part of the 7-figure calculator. It is a calculation that I did with a potential client who happens to be a friend of mine. And she came in saying, I want to be into 6 figures by, you know, month 5 of this year, month 6 of this year. How can I do that? I feel like I need more clients. I just need to talk to more people. I just need more clients. And so I said, okay, well, I'm not going to agree or disagree with you until I see what the numbers tell me. And so when we put in her numbers and look at what things are, you know, she thought her problem was at this first big red square, appear with leads, conversions, and clients. When I see this, I'm like, okay, leads 22, yeah, sure, you could probably increase that. But I look at the next part of her conversion rate was 73%. Guys, that's huge. It's huge. It means that, you know, 3 out of 4 clients are actually leads are actually becoming clients. That's a very high conversion rate. Okay, and that high conversion rate tells me something, and I'll get to you in a second. Then we can see what her average sale per client was, and this couple actually does relationship counseling. So anybody that wants to strengthen their relationship, maybe find a spouse, or wants to save their relationship from divorce. That's the type of coaching she does. So you can get those services from her for an average of $1,500. Opportunity here. What's the average divorce cost? I know when I helped my sister through a divorce maybe 4 or 5 years ago, easily we paid $13,000 to be able to do that with her. Divorce isn't cheap. $1,500 investment on saving somebody $10,000 to $15,000. Wow, that's a deal. It's a steal. Okay, but you can see that she also didn't have a whole lot of clients repurchasing, and I asked her about that. I said, so you're only working with people for 3 months? Are you seriously telling me that you fix all their issues in 3 months? She goes, yes, it's awesome. We love it. It's fabulous. I'm like, so let me get this right. For $1,500 in 90 days, you could save my marriage. And she was like, yeah, that's exactly what we can do. I was like, that's phenomenal. Okay, so there's not, at this point in time, we looked at it, we're like, okay, maybe there's not an opportunity to do that, but she actually had a one-to-one group coaching and a group program. So we talked about this, and when you get down to here, here's where the problem lies, okay? $1,500 is bad for a client. It can be pretty good for a client, depends on your business. Her conversion rate is really good. But when you get to numbers 5, you can see that she's not making a profit at all. Net profit, like before overhead expenses, salaries, all that nice fun stuff, she's losing 65 cents on every dollar that she's spending. Why is that? Well, let's look at this. So because her clients don't really purchase again, and because her cost of investment is fairly low for the value provided, she's only making $1,420 rounded up per client. The cost of acquisition, that is just the dollar cost, not the time cost, that it is taking her to market, to put on an event, to do a seminar, to do whatever she does in order to get those leads, it's costing her $1,250. So pre-expenses, she is only making $181 per client, pre-expenses. Remember that number one myth I talked about in the costly mistakes is, I need more clients. That's what she came in saying, I need more clients. Does she really need to lose, $500 per client? More clients doesn't fix the problem. So when we talk to her, and I kind of do this green section as a recommended, and we just basically said what would happen if we bumped up our leads just a little bit, because I'm recommending her price go up for obvious reasons. We're going to say, okay, we're not going to get as many clients, because that's typically what happens, is that your conversion goes down if your price goes up for a little bit, and then it comes back up as you get comfortable selling it. How can we encourage them to buy again? How can we transition these one-to-one clients from this one-to-one program into a group program? And if we got them to purchase again, what would that do for us? All things, we're talking about an increase of 4 clients and getting all 20 of those clients to buy again, okay? Suddenly we went from a negative 65% to a positive 69% for a very minimal increase in clients. And then we start to look at, you can look at the lifetime value of those clients now becomes $6,000. We're anticipating the spending, because we're not looking at a huge number of increase between clients, to remain around $1,250. Maybe it goes up to $1,500. But then she starts to make $4,500 with each and every client. If you don't know these numbers, this can kill you in your business, because if you're losing money with each and every sale, getting more sales doesn't do squat. It robs you of your money. If you're in that no time, no money realm, you got to look at these numbers in here and see where it's going, because it's obviously coming in, but it's not sticking around long enough to do you some good. So this is one of the things I wanted you to get, just what the value of knowing the numbers are. Doesn't have to be complicated. It's just some basic tracking of how many clients did you get, how many invoices, what was the total sales, how much did you spend on marketing, what's your overall expenses, and really being able to take a look at these and digest it in a way. But you can see what I love about the calculator. Yeah, we're forecasting a 439% growth, but it's actually really easy there. But you can see what 65% growth looks like, 221% growth, 470% growth. And when you start to see the little individual numbers, you see the value of just growing each number a little bit. I think if you grew each of those numbers 1%, your total growth would be, I think it's like 10.5 or 11.5%. That's why I say 10% growth in any business is easy. It really should be a baseline expectation year over year. Let's get into our third rule, which is about leveraging your resources. So in my world, and what I look at when we look at your business and are trying to find the growth, is that there's really 4 areas of leverage that you can have. And so money, people, systems, and technology. Let's go a little bit deep into these. So money leverage. Okay, listen up. If you say, I have no money in my business, I can't invest, I can't market, I can't do any of these things, you're giving yourself some excuses. Yes, it would be easier if you had money. Not going to argue with you about that. But it doesn't mean you can't. That doesn't mean there's not anything out there. And so I put number 1, really with you in mind, is that sweat equity partnerships. And these come in a little bit to people, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but really is you tend to have more time when you have no money. And how can you use that to somebody else's advantage? How can you co-market with somebody that has the money but doesn't have the time? wants the additional clients but can't put the effort into it. That's really what these sweat equity partnerships are about, is that you're bringing something to the table and you're leveraging money from somebody else. Okay. Second model is get paid to build it. This should work for a lot of businesses. It's not going to work for as much for necessarily legal services, tax services, and those types of things, although I would love to work on figuring out how that could be made. But it's basically where you pre-sell with the intention to develop, and you're going to have to follow through, obviously, and if you've got commitment issues and delivering issues, maybe this isn't the right strategy for you. But it's really about getting paid to build it and selling it before it's actually completely built. A huge viability of proving viability for products and services. B, a lot, I won't say a percentage because I don't rightly know, but a lot of the businesses online are doing it in this method and are very upfront with. Services won't begin until we have reached this mark, until it becomes profitable to do so. You have to honor the money and hold the money so that you can return it, but it's a great way to show viability, to show proof of concept, to get money in before you have even delivered on a product. The third one, investing on standing on the shoulders of giants. This is really about, using money to buy you time and to buy you a fast track. Every time I make an investment for myself and my company and coaching for other things, it's always about this, is I don't want to take 3 years to learn the mistakes. I want to go to somebody that's made them, learned from them, fixed them, and can show me in 30 days what to do so that I can have results in 60 days versus 4 years. 4 is about creating multiple streams of income. This can be really interesting some days, and you might think of it as passive income, but really it's about developing a balanced business that is based on some creative thinking. This can be everything from how do you get paid to create, in the fact that you get money up front. I love negative, or it's considered, it's positive cash flow, but it's a negative timeline when you get money before you actually have produced and served. But it's really getting those kind of multiple streams. We talked earlier about levels of service. We talked earlier about how do you bring in, different clients, different kinds of clients, and serve them in different ways. That kind of falls into this multiple streams of income. Multiple streams of income can be quite nice. And so if you've got a cyclical business, right, talked with a company out of Canada that's very seasonal. How do you combat the other half of the season? How do you use and take what you have today to then create an additional stream of income so that there really isn't a downtime? If you are completely dependent upon rewards or the cyclical nature of business, for me, for instance, because we deal with so many moms, summer's actually quite slow. So I could do another form of income over the summer that really replaces and helps offset. So you just to balance your business out and don't have that feast and famine roller coaster in your business. If that's you, you've got to think about this multiple streams of income. And then the last one being create passive income. This really is a higher level growth strategy. So if you're in that 250, 500 kind of range, this would be something for you to consider for sure. People leverage. Even if we don't have team, you can still leverage the people that surround you. That might be outsourcing. That might be delegation. It could be internships with people that just need some experience and are willing to do it cheap or willing to be able to do it for free. And then it's those partners and alliances that are really, really key. When you're at the early stages of growth, I'm going to say 3 and 4 are a lot more important for you. 4 is always important, quite honestly. If you let go of 4, that's a big kind of uh-oh, but 4 is always important. But really, when you have income in your business is really when you can do a lot more of the delegation and the outsourcing, because it's a pay for type of a service. But even then, even if your budget is strapped, you can still outsource for amazing quality work for minimal investment. I just spoke with Dina Eisenberg a couple weeks ago. We talked all about outsourcing on Fiverr, where you can get a job done for $25. I've done it. There's ways that you can leverage your business and the people and the work of others without having the big bank account. Obviously, the more you can pay, the better the quality, the better response, and things like that. But it's definitely possible no matter what your business account says. So systems leverage. People think systems is all about the time when you're like either trying to sell your business or really trying to grow and you've got lots of staff. But the truth of the matter is it should be happening from day one. And system is really about streamlining that process, first of all. Is how simple can we keep it? Complication juggers and clogs business. Okay, clogs the flow of business. How can you streamline the process to deliver a reliable product in an excellent time frame? If it takes 6 weeks, great. If it takes 3 days, whatever it is, but how can you do that reliably and repeatably? Gets into the reproducibility and the reliable aspect of systems. But here's what I have to say is the reason why I think people shy away from systems is that they think it's got to be complicated. When we are doing documentation with my clients, I keep it very down and dirty. Like, let's just keep it simple, down and dirty. And the reasons why is A, then you feel okay to use it because it's not perfect, and you feel okay to change it. And that's really about the streamlining the process. It kind of goes right back up into there and how you can leverage systems. And so if it looks perfect and it's in a perfect little binder and all that stuff, people don't seem to want to use it. But when it's down and dirty and approachable and touchable, then it just gets used. And so don't let that kind of perfection attitude really keep you from getting the systems down into your place. I think in December on the podcast, we talked with Stephanie Sharp, and she was talking about exit strategies. This element we went over a lot because it's one of the keys to being able to build a sellable business. If that's one of your long-term strategies, don't wait to 2 years before you want to sell. Start it now, because then you actually can show that it works, and you have a greater longevity of proof to be able to do this. But it also makes onboarding of employees so much faster, onboarding of outsourced companies so much faster. It really is one of those things that just makes everything easy. The fourth part of systems leverage is really about developing multiple pathways of work. You and yourself are really only one person. You can only work so many hours in the day. We have to agree on that aspect. But that doesn't mean that as a coordinator or a manager, and I'm kind of using my hands to where when you're the worker, you're kind of down, at the bottom rung. I'm trying to bring you up to a CEO level, to a business owner and an entrepreneur level of seeing how can you run as many things independently of each other so that you're shortcutting your time cycle in your business, whether it's growing your business, whether it's marketing your business. How can you shorten the time that it takes so that you actually see those results, so you can get the momentum, so you can be slow and steady, but at the same time, what's amazing about the slow and steady approach is that it feels really fast when you look back on it. So that's into systems. I'm going to take another little drink. So technology. As a small business, I think we do too much. We do too much of the little stuff in our business. And so as much as you can, I want you to automate as much as you can in your business with the concept of having high touch with your clients. So as much as you can automate the back end so that you can afford to have time to have high touch and deliver excellent customer service. But you're still not doing it all, right? The doing of it all is like, ugh. There's technology that can have you reaching more people. You guys know I'm big into social media, but I don't prescribe that for everyone. More people for you may be 10 people versus 2 people. How can technology help you do that? Okay, the other part that I love, especially about technology, is just getting responsive feedback, making it easy for people to engage with me no matter what time of the day it is, wherever they are in the world. How easy can I do that, and how quickly can I get feedback? You know, for us, we use Infusionsoft for our email marketings and things like that. I can tell within 24 hours if that was a message that you liked. I can tell because you start talking to me more. You know, there's a lot of responsiveness that you can use as part of your business and bring it back into it, but the technology makes it easy to gather and glean and be able to do that. And the last part that I love is just that with technology, you can have the strength of a big business and still do it on a relative shoestring budget. Amy, my VA, will tell you all day long, I'm all about a new system, a new program. Will this make it work better, faster, easier for us? And I'm constantly looking for the ways to leverage that into my business so that I can be the big business that I want to be, but still have operating on a smart financial small business cash flow, budget, profitability plan. All right, so how do you plan for your growth? Who wants to know this? Anybody? Anybody? The first of all is when we plan, and when I help my clients plan, I'll tell you we plan a year, but we only focus on 90 days, right? We plan out what we think will happen for the year, but all I ask for is a commitment for 90 days of uncompromising focus. That means banishing the shiny object syndrome. Gotta have that out there because it's something that so many entrepreneurs really struggle with. And what I love about the 90 days, and what my clients will even share with you, is 90 days really isn't that long. It's long enough to, like I said, start to see results, and it's long enough to put things into place, provided you get started with day one, right? And at the end of 90 days, you can do that, evaluate, you know, and experiment and really decide what you need to change more nimbly. It keeps you nimble, it keeps you fast, and it keeps you nimble. And so I really just focus on 90 days with my clients, and that's what I ask is 90 days of uncompromising focus. So with that, that means all those new great ideas do not get implemented unless it is just such a rock star. We'd be a fool not to. But all those shiny objects actually have a place on our computers, that we keep the good ideas so that at the end of these 90 days, we can actually go back and look at them and see if they're appropriate for us, where we are, and what we need to be doing for the next 90 days. So that's the first one, is you have to make a commitment from a 90-day perspective. The second part is planning for the possibilities. So when you're planning for growth, and you're going through the year and you're maybe just forecasting what the numbers should be, and everybody gets hung up on that, but really it's a stab in the dark based upon past experience, what you think it will be. And then you start looking at, if this happens, what else needs to happen? So if we have a month of sales that's $50,000, and that means that doubles our client load for that month, what needs to happen in order to support that? Is it just a month spike, and so I don't really need a full-time employee, but you know what? I need to have a few key resources lined up and ready to go. Is it that I do need to hire somebody? Is it that I really need to look at utilizing my assistant more or bringing on an intern? When you start to plan for the possibilities, you start to plan the structure around the growth that makes it profitable and sustainable. And you're doing it ahead of time. You're doing it 3 months ahead of time so that you can make unpressured, unbiased, clear-headed decisions on how you're going to grow your business. Typically, when we get under the gun, like, oh my gosh, I'm so behind, I've missed 4 client deadlines, I needed to hire somebody yesterday. Who hasn't said that? When you're in that position, you 9 times out of 10 make a bad choice. You're willing to cut those corners to get it done. Okay, when we plan for the possibilities of, if this happens here, what does this mean? For example, I have one client that does radio show underwriting, and so part of her business is that there's trafficking, like the movement of the advertising back and forth and the materials and things, and then there's another part that's grant writing. And so we looked at her business plan and we said, okay, if we're going to bring in this much funds here, and if these grants are going to come into here, when do we need to have this grant writer on board and ready to help us? And what would be our indicator that that needs to happen, that we need to start this process of a month-long process, 2-week-long process of getting somebody in place before we need them? It's that anticipation moment of when you plan for the possibilities of your growth that you're actually ensuring that the growth happens. The other nice part of it is that if you do need capital investments, if you're hiring a new employee, and that means a desk and a desk chair and a computer and a desk lamp and a mouse and all the things that go along with that, you have time to actually plan for those, and they're not hitting your pocketbook at a kind of unpredictable moment. It gets a little bit into cash flow, which I am passionate about. But the third way that you really kind of plan for your growth in here is that you break it down to put it together. So I just did a snapshot, and it's not even a full snapshot, but it is for a client that basically wants to double their business, wants to do the 250 to 500K type of jump in their business. And we looked at their marketing and we said, okay, what are we going to do? What's easy? What's natural? What does she do well? And then what do we need to do to build, you know, the marketing up to have things going? And you can see, I mean, it's very color coded, and if you looked at the whole thing, you might go, oh my gosh, that's so much work. But if you look at each column is just a week. She's doing 3 things. Max, do I have, oh, I have one that's 4, but that might be because, you know, the tasks that are in there are very simple, like make an appointment. You can handle, you know, more than one thing's in there. But you see, we broke it down to a weekly level so that every week she can look at this and say, this is what I need to be working on as part of the growth plan. Okay, if you didn't make some room for this, of course you're not going to be able to get to it. But by making the room and doing that number 1 rule of growth, you actually have time to do this. And then by breaking it down in little bitty chunks, it's just simple. It's just really easy. And actually I'm going to share a client story with you here in a minute about how easy it is, because I'll go with you. Until you've gone through it, you're not going to truly believe me in how easy it is. But by breaking this each down to just a step at a time and what needs to happen, and after that happens, what does it need to happen? And I think, you know, even on one of these, maybe that doesn't have a whole bunch, it says figure out what needs to happen. That's the next step. We just need to figure out what this means. But we've got other things to work on, so we're going to figure that out in December or January or February or March, whenever that might be. So it doesn't have to be complicated, and sometimes it's just really obvious what the next step should be. So I'll kind of start wrapping up. Today's is, you know, from everything that you've learned, what's going to be your best next step? Because education like this is fabulous, but it's not worth diddly squat if you don't do something with it. So this is the time that you think about, what have you learned this today that really is about taking that best next step for you? So I'm going to challenge you. What are you going to do differently? I think you've heard the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I think first time I saw that, man, that hit home. That really hit home. And here's what I know about you and being successful in your business is it's not really about your clients. You might think it is, but it's not. It's not really about your competition, because in truth, you probably have less competition than you think you do. But it really is all about you. What makes 2 people completely different from each other and has one business owner succeed and another business owner not succeed in identical businesses is all about them. It's all about you as a person. So business isn't really about getting the best clients in the end or getting out besting your competition. It's really about getting the best from yourself. And that's one of the reasons that we kind of do this webinar and share these things with you, so that you can better yourself. I want to challenge you not to let good be your enemy. You know, there's a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins, and the secondary book, which I loved more, was called Great by Choice. And in it, he says that the reason that we don't have any more great businesses is because we have too many good businesses. The reason that we don't have so many great schools is because we have too many good schools. You know, good, okay, average, about the same as last year is a complacency place to be. And my challenge is really for you to have a great business, is my wish for you. And I love this little quote, but it talks about the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is just that little extra. It doesn't take a whole lot for you to have a great business, but you have to go for great and not be willing to settle for good. Patty is one of my clients, and we've been working together for almost a year. And, you know, just wanted to share with you a little bit of this, but I love this last quote and amazingly, it was a lot less work than I thought. That little bit of extra really isn't hard and really takes a lot less effort than you might think it is. And I don't want you to let that good or everything's okay or that kind of middle of the road keep you from being the best and the greatest that you can be. I don't want fear to stop you, okay? I love this. The universe rewards action. Any action is good action. It just helps us refine and define the next action. And so not taking action in your business and letting fear stop you is a huge component. I can tell you how many I'm never one to push somebody into a sale. That's just not my personality. But I can tell you how many conversations I had where money and not knowing where the money was going to come from was the number one reason that people couldn't take action. And I wanted to show Michelle, and Michelle's actually my radio fundraiser and had a business idea for 3 years, just a business idea to do something. And really it was the fear that stopped her from choosing. And it, you know, in some ways it's a fear of the unknown. So I loved it. And I asked, just like, I had no idea. Like, I asked my clients to just share one of their fears with you. And this was hers, that she had no idea of how she was going to be able to afford it. But what has it done in the meantime? And for her, it meant getting a five-figure client within 90 days, presenting a six-figure client in 6 months. You know, and she just presented a $3 million deal last week. So it really is that little bit of action can change your life. And so I don't want fear to stop you from getting there. So one step that you can do, you can take those learnings that we've had and you can make an adjustment in your business. You can check out the website and find a little more resources. You can keep coming to the webinars. Those all work. But if you're ready to take a different step forward, if you're ready to have me look at your business and have a conversation, I would just invite you to apply for one of our breakthrough laser sessions. I can't tell you I can't convince you of the value that these things have, not in just me being able to help you and me being able to refine my craft and what it is that I do, but the sheer value that it brings to people that actually come and talk with me for 45 minutes is amazing. So I want to give you that as a next step. You can go straight to this link, yourbizrules.com/app. And that's the application process. There is a little application process because in order to be able to help you the best, I need to know a little bit more. And it just makes a good use of our time if I know that information ahead. So what do I know? Who is this the best for? Really, if you're committed to actually living up to your potential, doing your calling, serving your purpose, if you are ready to just make a big change, if you're ready to do something different and stop, you know, having to learn the hard way, so to speak, stop having to make those wrong turns. If you are inspired to serve and be profitable, you know, you are ready to receive your value, give value, and receive your value, I would love to talk to you. And then if you're looking for somebody that's been there, like I said, I have been on almost every little valley and high that I think an entrepreneur can absolutely have. So there's a lot that I can identify with you. And in that, there's also a lot of judging that doesn't happen. I think so many people are afraid of the judge. And the truth is that I've been there, and so I'm not going to judge. I'm just here to help you find the best path up and the best path to get to your big payoff and get to your big why and make that growing business really become a reality. So with that, please, my friends, don't sell yourself short. You know, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And so that's my challenge to you, is if you are looking to grow your business, is take a step in the right direction. Take a step. Even if it's the wrong direction, it will lead you to the right direction. I hope that you had a great time with us here today. I don't see any questions or any comments out there from my console here on the back side. But if this really struck home, if there was an aha moment, please let us know so that we can improve these. And then next month, we're actually going to be talking a little bit more about time and how to really maximize your time as a small business owner. It is not about doing it all. It's about getting the right stuff done in the least amount of time as possible and being able to live our life outside of that. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I have to take another sip. And we will see you on the flip side. See you in your email box. Thanks all.